Hi, in this video I want to teach you how to knit this baby sweater. It's really pretty and I'm going to show you a close-up the stitch. It's very easy to make, and this will fit a baby from 8 months to 2 years, around that range of an age. Exactly I don't know because I don't have a baby to try it on, but I know it will fit around that age. So here is the list of materials you're going to need to make it. To make this baby sweater or little jacket, sleeveless jacket, the yarn I'm going to use is red hardwood wool. It's worsted 4 or medium 4. It's 80% acrylic, 20% wool. It has 100 grams or 131 meters, and the color is daisy. If you want to do this without sleeves, you will need 2 balls of yarn, but if you're going to make this with a sleeve, you will need 300. That means 3 balls of yarn. The knitting needle are 7 millimeters. You're going to need scissors, tapestry needle, a stitch counter. You're going to need buttons, and look, these gorgeous dragons buttons that I have here. I paid $3 for 4 and I love them. They will go perfect with this piece. And I'm gonna need needle and thread to sew the buttons. To make this baby sweater in yellow, I'm gonna do exactly what I did to make this one. For this one I did 2 panels, but for the yellow I only gonna make 1. But it's exactly done the same. So you're gonna see me working here with the blue yarn, and it's because I'm attaching what I did for this one to this video. That way I don't have to record all over again what I already did for this one, because the pieces are exactly the same, but the only thing that you have to do only one for the yellow because the front is different. Here I'm gonna wrap around my yarn on my needle 42 times, and when I finish wrapping around, I will show you how we're gonna cast on, and that will be the tail that we need for the casting on. Once you have the amount of tail that you need, you will do a slip knot. This stitch that we are doing is multiple of 3. This one in the top at the same time is divisible by 2 for the bottom. So you can add, say, 12 stitches, but you don't can do 15 because that will be an odd number in here. You need even number in the bottom. So that's why I did 42. So if I wanted this bigger, I don't can add 3 because there will be 45. I will have to add 6 at a time. If I have one smaller, you will have to remove 6 stitches at a time. So to get the measurements, I don't have little kids, so what I did is I have these little baby top. So this one is from 6 to 12, and this one will be from 8 to 18 months. You see? It's a little bit bigger, so from 8 to 18 months. And that was my 42 stitches. If you have a bigger kid, you will have to cast on some stitches, work it for a couple of rows, cast it off, and then get the measurements in one of the baby's pieces. If you don't have the baby with you, you can ask their parent to give you the measurement in one of their pieces, and you can figure out the measurements that you need to do the piece. I recommend this because I don't have kids, like I mentioned, little kids. So if you have a 5 years old, you'll have to find one of his clothes and do that in order to get the measurements, because I don't have 5 years old in my house or any 5 years old clothes. So that's what I recommend. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna cast off the amount of stitches that you need for your piece. For mine, I'm gonna do 42. Just like this. Something that depends too how many stitches you're gonna cast on, and that's why I recommend to do the little piece, is the type of yarn that you're using and the size needle. If I'm using a thinner yarn and a smaller needle, this piece will be for a smaller baby. Okay, so you have to have that into account. Once you finish casting on, you're gonna do a little knot here, not too tight, just enough to secure the first stitch. So remember, you're gonna start one of the piece with 2 purl and finish with 2 purl, and the next one you will start with no net and then finish with 2 net. I mentioned that I did 42 row of the stitch, and 43 and 44 was purl and 45 cast off. That is of the stitch. I don't count the 6 row of border. Okay, so you're gonna do 6 row border, and you're gonna start either with 2 purls or 2 net. But remember, the other one you have to start with the reverse. So I'm gonna 2 and 2 for 6 row. To show you the design, I'm going to be working only in these 12 stitches because I already have my other piece here ready for my 2 row purl. So what I'm doing now is something I wanted to mention. For example, if mine was 2 purl in beginning, 2 at the end, because the 42 stitches, but you're doing bigger or smaller, and you start with 2 purl and finish with 2 net that row, the other piece you will do exactly the same. So mines are different because I start with 2 purl and finish with 2 purl. So the other one I have to start with 2 net and finish with 2 net. That is the other piece. So you're gonna continue. This one was a net on this side, so it's a purl on the back side. So you're going to continue working the border for 6 rows. Once you finish with the 6th row, I'm going to erase my 6th row. So I don't going to count the 6th row as part of the stitch. So I'm going to start with 1 purl, yarn over, and 2 together. That is the stitch for the entire piece. The repetition of those 3 in that order. 1 purl, yarn over your needle like that, and 2 together in a purl stitch. That's the repetition that you're gonna do of those 3. 1 purl. You see, again we started with the first one. Yarn over, and 2 together and a purl stitch. It's a very easy stitch. So 1 purl, yarn over, and 2 together. Purl, yarn over, and 2 together. You're going to continue doing this until the end of that row. So I'm going to mark that first row. You're going to turn around your work and you start exactly the same as you did the first row. One purl, yarn over, and 2 together. Now the 2 together is that yarn over that you did before and the next one, those 2 stitches together. You have to remember always do the yarn over, because each time you do 2 together you are decreasing a stitch, and that yarn over is the increase at that stitch again. Okay, so you have to increase the stitch first, that's the yarn over, and then you always do the 2 together. This is a purl first. You're going to purl, yarn over, and 2 together. Each time you're going to do the yarn over and the 2 together, you see, you have this one and the other needle, that open stitch like that. And that's your guide, that way you know what to do next. 1 purl, yarn over, and 2 together. Purl, yarn over, and 2 together. And again, you turn your work around once you finish that row, and you're going to mark the second row. Again, 1 purl, yarn over, and 2 together. One more time. 1 purl, yarn over, and 2 together. You're going to continue doing this until you have the desired length that you want for your piece. For me, this one that I have here, ready to do the 2 row of purl, it measures 28 centimeters. That is from the border, everything, 28 centimeters. Now we're going to do, once you finish with that piece that measures this length, or the length that you need for yours, we're going to do 2 row of purls. Once you finish those 42 row, or the amount of row that you need for yours, the next 2 rows, they're going to be purls, and I'm going to start my first row in the right side of the piece. Okay. You're going to purl, you see that's the yarn over, you're going to grab it like this, and you're going to purl that one. You need to purl every single one. I'm going to continue doing this for this row and the next one. If you like, you can do more row, but for me only 2. Once you finish with those 2 purl, you're going to cast off a bind up, and we're going to do it in a purl row or a purl stitch. You're going to purl 1, and you're going to purl the second one. Now the first one that you purl, you're going to pass it from top of the second one and take it out of the needle. That's you cast off or bind up. You're going to do the same to the next one. You're going to purl the next one. You will have 2 stitches on your needle. You grab the one in the back and pass it through the top of the front and cast it off. Again, you purl the next one, the first one, and pass on top and the next one. Like that, you're going to continue until you have 1 left on your needle. You're going to end up with the 1 stitch, so you're going to cut the yarn long enough for sewing the shoulder part. So you're going to grab your yarn and pass it through that loop. Not too tight, you're the one that's... When you finish that panel, it will look exactly like this one. And then for the front, we're going to do, again, the casting on for the border, exactly like this one, the same amount. And we're going to measure that front piece to this one as we work, because we want the length in the side. Here in the top like this, because it's going to be sewn like this. and all the way around here until here, and then you'll do the border again. It's very easy to do this, so you don't have to do this sweater with this stitch, neither with this border. If you like, you can do no border at all and you start with a stitch, and if you like, you can do different stitch. You can do just all net in the front and in the back, or all purl in the front and the back. I just give you an idea, and you can change the stitch to the one that you feel more comfortable doing. If you don't feel like you think that this type of stitch is too much for you, if you're a beginner, you can do whatever you like for the stitch at the sweater. So now I'm going to show you how to do the front part. To do the front part, I'm going to cast on 24 stitches. So I'm going to wrap my yarn on the needle 24 times. That way I know the amount of yarn that I need to leave for casting on. Once you have your tail, you're going to do a slip knot. And you're going to cast on your 24 stitches, or if you want this bigger, you can cast on as many stitches you need for the front. For mine is 24. So I'll meet you here when I have my 24 stitches on my needle. Here I have my 24 stitches. So I'm gonna do a knot here, not too tight, and just to secure the stitch. And I'm gonna start with a border, and I'm gonna do exactly the same amount of row that I did for the back. So for mine are 6 rows. So I'm gonna start with 2 net. That's 1 and 2 net, and now I'm gonna do 2 purls. Like that, I'm gonna work for 6 rows. After the 6th row, I'm gonna start with the stitches like this. Remember, we're working exactly the same as we did the border for the back. Here I finished my border piece, and now we're gonna start with a stitch exactly the same as we did for the back. So we're gonna start with a purl, yarn over, and 2 together. One purl, yarn over, and 2 together. You always have to make sure, if you do the yarn over, that you do the 2 together, because otherwise you'll be increasing stitches, and vice versa. If you are doing the 2 together, you have to make sure that you do the yarn over, otherwise you'll be decreasing. So you have to keep the balance of the stitch. Yarn over and 2 together. One purl, yarn over, and the 2 together is always in a purl stitch. You're going to continue doing this all the way to the end. Once you finish that first row, don't forget to count it as a first row. I like to keep the border separate from the body of the piece when I count in the stitches. So that it was my first row of the stitch. The second row is exactly the same as you work in the back piece. So you start with 1 purl, yarn over, and 2 together. 1 purl, yarn over, and 2 together. Like that, you're going to continue working all the way to the end. And when you finish row number 2, you will mark that row, and you will going to continue working all the way around, and you'll be measuring by this one. You put it on top of this one like that, and you mark, you know, like this. all the way around to the other side. Like this is how you're going to be measuring as you work. And in the top, all the way around. And the piece will look like this. Once you have the desired length, and then it's time to finish with the border. And remember, we started with 6 rows of border here. I did 115 rows of the stitch. That way give me this exactly the same size as the back part. So I was measuring like this, one on top of each other. Here, measure the back from shoulder to shoulder, and I do the same from side to side here. And now I'm ready to finish the top part with the border. And now I'm going to show you how to do that. Now it's time to do the border, and you have to make sure in this side you work as you did in the other end out there. For me, I had to do 2 net. I'm going to start with 2 net. My second net is where I had the yarn over, so I still do that one as a net. Move yarn to the front, do 2 purl. Yarn to the back. Here I finished the first row with 2 purl. Now I turn my work around and I have to start with 2 net. 2 net, 2 purl, 2 net, 2 purl, and that's row number 2. And I finished that row. Now I'm gonna cast off or bind off, so I'm gonna net my first one and my second one. I'm gonna pass the first one on top of the second one, and I cast off or bind off that stitch. Now I'm gonna purl the next one. Remember, you have to purl the purl and net the nets, even when you're casting off or binding off. So pass that one on top of that one, and I'm gonna purl the next one. And like that, you're gonna continue here all the way to the one loop, and I'm gonna pass my yarn through. I'm gonna pull and secure the stitch. Now we're gonna sew the front piece to the back. And something that I forgot to mention that you're gonna need is 2 markers or just 2 little pieces of yarn. I'm gonna use this 2 little pieces of yarn. And if you want to do this without a sleeve, with these tails that you have here, you can sew on the side, and then if you have a tail long enough in the other one, you will sew the other side, or you just attach a new piece of yarn and do the side. For me, I'm gonna lose all these tails that I have around here, and I'm gonna use new strand of yarn, because when I do the sleeve, I'm gonna grab a long one enough to sew from the sleeve down and the other side. For the top, I need to sew from the center to one side and the center to the other side. So I don't have a strand of yarn there in the center right now. So to mark where we're gonna start sewing, what we're gonna do is fold this in half. Like this. You have to make sure that it's right. And here in the center, you're gonna place one of the 2 pieces of yarn. I just to mark there. That way I know where the center is. And the same you're gonna do with the other piece. Like this. Now this is the right side out. I'm gonna place it like that. Any of the piece can be, any of the side can be the right side, but I picked that one. And this one is the right side out. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna match these 2 center pieces here, and there is where we're gonna start sewing. We're gonna sew from the center out, and then from the center out to the corner. And then here, when I grab my piece of yarn to sew the center, I gonna grab one, leaving a tail long enough that I gonna leave the tail long here, and I will sew that way. Loose the yarn when I finish, and that tail that I left here, I gonna pass it through my needle again and continue sewing from the center out. That way I don't have any knots or anything in the center. And I will show you how to do that in here. And then after that, what we're gonna do is just do the sleeves. Here I have the tail, a very long tail to sew. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna pass, interesting, this one and these two together here. And now I can remove those markers. And I'm gonna leave the tail long enough because that's the piece that I'm gonna use to sew from here out. Okay. And this, I went through that. There we go. So now I'm gonna sew in a zigzag. From one side to the other one. And remember, this is the one that I'm gonna use for sewing the other side. So I want to leave it long enough for that. And once I get to the end, I will secure really well this strand of yarn here and loose whatever I have left, and then I will show you how to sew from the center out. Once you pass your yarn through the needle again, I'm going to turn my work around, that way I can see better what I'm doing. And I want you to make sure that this part is stretched enough that when you sew in this side here, you get the right length. Okay, you have to make sure of that, because this stitch is a stitch that gather, so you have to make sure that you measure there, even if you have to place a marker here to do a knot with another yarn here together, and later on you undo that. Okay, so what I did here on this side, when I was losing the tail, you see here the stitch make these little loops, and that's where we're gonna pass our needle to cast on the stitches for the sleeve. So here in the center we don't have one of those loops, and what I did when I was losing the tail, I created that loop with the tail and the tapestry needle there. So I have my loop for the center in here when I cast on the sleeve. Okay, once you finish, the piece will look like this, and then you're gonna bring this part to the front and the other one. If you like it without a sleeve, you will sew the here and in here and put the buttons, and you're done. And this will look like this. So if you're gonna do the sleeve, just continue watching the video. I already did one of the sleeve, and it will look like this. And now we're gonna work on the other side. So you'll have it like that. And we're gonna cast on 24 stitches. So from the center to, you're gonna count 1 until 12 and 1 until 12 for a total of 24, but you have to make sure that the 2 at the center is part of the 24 from that 12 and 12 in here. Okay, it's very easy to do. So you'll see these stitches here like that, and those are the one that we're gonna cast on in there. So mark your 24 stitches, and I'll show you how to do the casting on. Here I mark my 24 stitches, 12 and 12. So now I'm gonna show you how you're gonna cast on the stitches. You're gonna come to the first one, you're gonna pass your needle from the front to the back, and then the other ones just like this, from the front to the back. Not from the back in like that, because they will be the wrong way. Just like this, and they will look like they've been casting on as you work. You see, they're the perfect cast on. So you're going to continue doing this until you have your 24 loops on your needle, and after that I will show you how to continue. Once you cast on your stitches with your crochet hook, you're going to come here. Oh, you can use your finger, tapestry needle, whatever you like to pass your yarn through. And we're gonna do a knot here to secure our yarn. And now we're gonna do our stitches. Now we're gonna start our stitch, and we're gonna do the stitch that we've been doing so far. One purl, yarn over, and two together, all the way to the end. One purl, yarn over, and two together. When you get to the end, you will come back exactly the same. One purl, yarn over, and two together, and you'll work those stitches for 26 rows. So you have to keep a count of your rows because you want the two sleeves to be exactly the same. So I will meet you here when I have my 26 row, and it's exactly the same as we've been doing till now. Here I have the desired length before I start to do the cuff of the sleeve. So you're gonna do one purl, one net, one purl, one net, or one net, one purl, however you like to start with. I'm gonna start with the purl because I already did the other sleeve with the purl. So you're gonna do one purl, and here is the yarn over. This is a long stitch that you're gonna do a net, and you're gonna put it to the side, and you're gonna do a purl. To the other side, you're gonna do a net, and like that you're gonna continue working one net, one purl, or one purl, one net for 6 rows. And after that we will be casting off and then sewing the side of the sweater, but you have to do the other sleeve and put in the buttons. Here I finished my 6th row, and now I'm gonna cast off, and I'm gonna cast off as the same as I work. So I'm gonna do one purl, and I'm gonna do a net, and I'm gonna pass that purl on top of that net like that, and I cast off the first stitch. Like that you're gonna continue all the way to the end. That now this is a purl, and I pass this one on top of that one like that. Here you have one stitch left, so you're gonna pass the yarn through, and you're gonna cut this tail long enough to sew the side of the sleeve and the side of the body, and you're gonna secure that stitch there. Once you finish putting on the sleeve, it will look like this. So you're gonna decide here what part you want for the outside. If this one that you see the row of purl more, or this one that you see the row of purl a little bit less. I'm gonna put that one into the outside. So what I'm gonna do is grab this end at the front, bring it here, and the other end, and just like that we have the sleeve there, and the other one on the other side. Now with your tapestry needle, you're gonna sew here, matching every stitch to every stitch, and it's easy because they are lifted like that. So you're gonna sew here in the side and the other side, and then we're gonna sew the buttons, and we're done. Once you finish sewing the sleeve, it will look like this. I love this little baby sweater. And now what you're gonna do is sew the buttons, and any of these holes, it will be the button hole. So I'm gonna grab my buttons and I'm gonna sew them that they will be like that. And it will look like this. Love this baby sweater. So now I'm gonna sew the buttons and I'll show you the end result. This is the amount of yarn that I have left from my third ball of yarn. So if the yarn you are using, I have more than 100 grams each ball, like 120, with 2 you have for your little baby sweater. But since mine were 100 grams, I have to use 2 and like 20-30 grams of the third one. Well, here is the end result, and I love this little baby sweater. It's gorgeous. I hope you guys like it and give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel if you are not already a subscriber and you make this little baby sweater and you want to send me some picture. You can do it through my Facebook page, Ruby Stedman, or you can find me in my Instagram, Ruby Stedman Crochet. I wish you have a beautiful day. Bye.